Hello everyone, Dinner from DePIN Hub here, and today we have Scott Sigel from the Helium Foundation. We go way back in time.
We do go way back.
Right.
It's been years now.
It's been so cool to finally have you on like some sort of interview like Joey, like Coco, now you.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been building Helium for a long time. And just like on my background, I've been in crypto for, I don't know, since 2011. But it was just because of these guys that I decided to go full-time crypto, full-time DePIN, and that's why I'm here. So I have to be very grateful for the Helium team, for like being very close and very friendly at the time to get together where we are now, and actually the grandfathers of, the DePIN space.
I mean, I think we have to attribute so much of our success to early, very aligned community. What you guys did with Hotspotty and how much you were actively involved from a deployment side, from building out tools, from the education. Like, I think, even when I talk to DePIN projects that are launching now, of how much that community involvement matters so much, that sense of ownership, and what you guys have brought to the table over the years, like it just kind of, it's been so symbiotic, I think.
Yeah, it's been amazing because I remember, like, I already had built some lore stuff in the past before Helium.
Yeah.
And then by the time I realized what Helium was doing, I had this freaking, like, light bulb moment, like, okay, game over. That's something that's going to change the world. And now we're here constantly building. It's been, 5 years almost.
6. Well, I mean, since mainnet launch of Helium's original L1, we'll probably get back to that. Yeah, 6 years on that roughly. But I mean, Helium's conceptually been around for over like a decade, I think.
Yeah.
At this point, it was not a crypto native company from the get-go.
And yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see how the company always survives, basically, right? Like trying to reinvent themselves over and over again, trying to find product market fit. Way before it was not crypto at all. Yeah. And then I think it was 2019 or something, they started like getting this idea of like a token, building their own layer one. Maybe you can do like a quick intro of yourself and about like the early beginnings of Helium as you see.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run the, actually originally started the foundation, was brought in from the kind of original founding leadership team to start up the foundation, thinking about stewardship, thinking about governance, thinking about how we can incentivize and support the community and kind of building up the network. I mean, my background's mostly been in kind of venture for most of my life. So building things, breaking things, thinking about being agile and pivoting, kind of really delivering value to kind of end users. But I stumbled, it's funny, like how I originally got into crypto was working with cryptographers that were designing kind of these trustless products, trustless systems. How do you kind of eliminate risk? And it was more DeFi as to how I originally got in, because I was fintech years ago. And that was always kind of where my kind of sweet spot was kind of translating from the engineers into how you think about going to market, how do you think about that commercial value, kind of audience development and whatnot. But after a few different projects, I mean, Helium was one of the things that, like, same for you, it clicked with me of this is human scale kind of paradigm shift of how you actually think about building these things. I think what's been true, regardless of crypto, is physical networks in general are always have the strongest network effect of any. You think about marketplace, you think of these different types of networks. Physical networks have always been the strongest, but they also take the longest to build and the most capital intensive.
Yeah.
So when you think about something like Helium, was, what is the reason for Helium to exist? Like, what is the point after all? It's how do you get to affordable, ubiquitous wireless? And historically, Helium was, you kind of look at what the wireless space looks like. It is top down. It's enterprise built. So these large carriers, they spend billions of dollars every year to create that type of coverage and maintain that. Really, it's all about return to shareholders. So where do you have the density? Where are you actually having the return on that? And that means you've got underserved areas in urban centers, rural communities get left behind, supply chains that get underserved. So when Helium first started, it was mostly around like the most economically difficult area of wireless, which was IoT.
Yeah.
Because the economics and sustain that has always been difficult for carriers. So how do you bootstrap and how do you build a network for smart devices and low power devices that are solving real civic and kind of social issues? So I mean, you guys kind of see a lot of this in, I mean, one of our biggest IoT success stories is right in Porto. So you've got a team they were just wireless solutions for municipalities, and they went and built a flood detection system on top of Helium, which is probably a lot of the coverage that you guys deployed in the early days.
Sure.
And it's just it's a more affordable way to deploy out sensors and tech that can kind of benefit municipalities and supply chain. But obviously, kind of how we've scaled over the years is where we've found it with IoT. We scaled up a really amazing supply side, and that coverage grew globally really fast. I think one of the things that was always missing in IoT was that flagship product that everybody could quickly use and kind of participate in the demand side, not just supply. And that's where we really hit our stride now with mobile, I think.
Yeah, I know exactly. I think the Helium IoT network was, I would say it was like the fastest and quickest growth of any kind of infrastructure in history, right? Like, I think, I don't know, 2 years, there's like 1 million devices around the world.
I would say it was like, either just under or near like 1 million nodes deployed to provide low power, long range coverage on the LoRaWAN standard, which was Helium IoT. I mean, it was really where you saw that kind of cold start, and the token incentives really worked. I think one of the things that we were always missing and made it kind of hard in the earlier days was like, again, like that flagship of like, what? Okay, we've built the network. It is there. Now we all want to start to use that. And from the foundation side, again, we still always are looking for things that we can fund that are turnkey solutions. And that this is an IoT problem. It's not even a Helium problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But, when you think about the fact of as Helium kind of evolved and shifted and kind of expanded its focus to mobile and cellular networks, you've got a flagship use case in everybody's pocket. And that was the idea of a low-cost cell phone plan, at least in the U.S. for now. That everybody could actually use the network and participate in that. And that was kind of the beginning, and then kind of with carrier offload, which we can certainly talk about, of where that's really been a big sweet spot for Helium, of benefiting what's been a big pain point for global carriers around the world.
Exactly. I think, what do you think was one of the biggest challenges you guys have in the last few years that you remember?
The biggest challenge the last few years, I mean, it's
Moving, like getting away from managing our own layer one into like a Solana.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that we were confronting at once. So on one hand, building physical networks is really hard. Building hardware is really hard. Running a blockchain is hard. Like doing all three is just insane. I mean, Helium, when it started, it was its own layer one. It was built on Erlang, which is not exactly the biggest DevRel community within crypto. It was, it's really built for a telco use case. And ultimately, again, I think the options were different in 2019, but between the core developers, the community, it was what do we really need? If we're building a human scale application, we need a high throughput blockchain that can support the network's growth, that we don't have to be in. The engineers aren't sitting there on pager duty of, is it up? Is it down? Is consensus running appropriately? Like, that's the right thing for us to, like, we're a wireless business. We didn't also need to be a blockchain infrastructure business.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, like, I loved the idea initially that each device its own full blockchain.
Conceptually, it's great.
Exactly. Yeah. When I understood that, like, oh, this is amazing. But I think the Helium at that point, it was like, its success made it hard for it to scale because it was too quick, right? Like, too much, and then the device started, you guys were always, like, trying to, like, catch up with the growth, which was pretty hard. And then when did the idea of, like, start expanding to, like, the cell phone carrier?
Yeah, so the Freedom Fi team, which was ultimately acquired by Nova Labs, which is the primary, they're the founders of the network, they're the primary operating company that's running kind of the flagship product. I mean, as much as there are dozens of organizations that run on top of Helium, Nova Labs has built Helium Mobile, which is that kind of flagship product now, but a lot of that inspiration came from within the community. So Freedom Fi, they were working things around CBRS, 5G, and that was kind of the catalyst to start drive hey, we have a way to kind of build this network now. Like, the token incentives work. We can kind of provide that supply side. How do we think about kind of modifying the economics that, like, obviously data throughput on low power, long range IoT versus mobile is considerably different. But those are just things that you can do through governance and thinking about, the cost of a gigabyte of data on one network versus another, adapting those to support a different type of a wireless protocol. And I think the reality is that, number one, we knew how to build those types of networks, and we were very, very successful at it with IoT. And it just goes back to that same thing of, we need to kind of scale the demand side. You need protocol revenue to sustain the economic model of Helium over the long term. So the idea of everybody has a cell phone, everybody needs that connectivity.
The demand is right there.
Yeah, and I mean, especially like with traditional cell phone networks, that kind of evolution of 4G networks to 5G, not to get too nerdy about it, but again, like that kind of that demand of what you need for data throughput, you need you need more dense deployment of that radio coverage. So it is, again, it's a problem at a carrier level where, again, tens of billions of dollars every single year to provide that type of coverage for cell phone connectivity and mobile phone connectivity. You've got a customer on the other side that's ready to buy that data. Not to mention an easy way for an operating company to deploy a challenger carrier to also to engage the community in kind of a novel product and a novel service that's very familiar to everybody around the world.
I mean, I think that the Helium Mobile is such a perfect product market fit right now, right? Because like for people who don't know, if you shift from 4G to 5G, let's say you have more bandwidth, also the frequency is higher.
Yeah.
The frequency is not linearly with distance. If you increase the frequencies, exponentially shorter the distance that you have. So you need, much more density of antennas around you to get to that point. And, like if the T-Mobile, AT&T, all the carriers around the world need to have enough like density of antennas, the cost is massive.
It's huge. I mean, to put it in almost like real anecdotal terms, you can think about those radio towers that you see in different cities around the world, whether that is in Lisbon, whether it's New York, San Francisco. If you've got these things and they're about a mile apart, I mean, they're obviously like some of these things are half mile apart, but like you've got all these gaps in coverage. And again, as we have more demand for large amounts of data through those networks, those large carriers are not going to deploy those additional radios for all those gaps in coverage. So combining an enterprise top-down build with a bottom-up community-built network, these things work really well in harmony together. So again, in terms of that path to affordable, ubiquitous wireless, you needed an incentivized community-built network to actually supplement carrier networks and improve coverage, but also open up the space to new competition with new types of mobile network operators.
Yeah, and I think I really like as well the process you guys have been through, right? Like starting with CBRS. CBRS has like advantages and disadvantages, and now shifting to Wi-Fi mainly, having a cheap device, very affordable, very easy to deploy. How has been the expansion so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. I mean, obviously, it was the CBRS. You don't want it to go too heavy in the acronyms. So, Citizens Broadband Radio Service. It is an open, so the U.S. was, I think, the only country that had open spectrum that was available. And it was actually primary for military use. Yeah. So if there was some, doomsday scenario that spectrum would going to be taken back over by the military, but the idea that it was open and available to commercial organizations, that was kind of a good point of innovation for us to kind of experiment and try that. Ultimately, one of the issues with CBRS and the reason why we ended up moving past it is, number one, it's a UX issue. Trying to do handoffs between CBRS spectrum versus Wi-Fi offload. It's, without going too far into details, you have a bad user experience. Yeah, I mean, for folks with iPhones, like it's just very hard and you're dropping a lot of calls. And unfortunately, it just looks too much like traditional enterprise telco. And the reality is Wi-Fi offload is kind of the growth path for these traditional carriers. So again, like the likes of Telefonica, the likes of an AT&T, this is a focus area for them anyway. So the fact that so many of these areas of kind of challenge for coverage are indoors, or arenas, malls, small cafes, because those are the areas that like a lot of these large carriers are looking for support in that coverage. It's a great way to incentivize the community because those are the right types of venues that people can deploy to anyway. So you're thinking about small business, thinking about business improvement districts, neighborhoods. All these are great places where any kind of mom and pop can put these things up, and it's I think one of the things that we like to hang our hat on is I feel like Helium consumerized mining. Kind of going back to Bitcoin, Ethereum, you needed some degree of kind of technical prowess to actually kind of get involved in kind of mining for these kind of larger digital native networks, where Helium was taking something out of the box that was a little bit more approachable. And that's where you kind of get to that scale of coverage when you can open up to much more participation. And now with Helium Mobile, that participation is also on the demand side.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think Helium, it was a great success story in terms of onboarding a lot more people into crypto, right? Yeah. I like to say that DePIN is the gateway drug to Web3.
Yeah.
And because of Helium, it was so easy to deploy. You just buy the device, you plug in, you just do everything on the phone. The app was very good.
Yeah.
It was so easy that we deployed, I think, around 150 devices in Portugal and in Belgium. Everyone at that time, we're teaching them about crypto, teaching them about wallets, how they're going to get paid, how's it going to work. Yeah. A lot of those people got interested from that point, from that seed, basically.
Yeah.
Started, venturing into Bitcoin, Ethereum, all their DePINs.
I know. I feel like we had a little bit of an extra. we had a responsibility to educate so much of our community on some of these kind of first principles of crypto and how you kind of think about engaging with wallets and exchanges. And we took that responsibility seriously. But I think that when we think about the economic benefits of crypto, so much of that, I think that where DePIN can succeed is actually abstracting away a lot of that. So where Helium is seeing really fantastic growth right now is through what we call carrier offload. And I mentioned that a couple of times, but so in addition to Helium Mobile, which is a cell phone plan that you sign up for, you're using, and you can actually earn what's now points for kind of helping to map the network. The other way that people are engaging with Helium is without even knowing about it or without even seeing it. So in the US, actually, we just announced, so AT&T, so it's the second largest telco, 120 million subscribers in the US. We are basically, AT&T is leveraging Helium as a way to expand their coverage footprint. So of those 120 million subscribers, they are interacting with Helium every single day, and they don't know it, they're unaware of it, but the value is there and it's being delivered. I think the metric right now is it's something to the tune of, on average, call it like 600, 700,000 users of traditional telco carrier services, like an AT&T, are roaming into him every single day. They don't know it, they don't see it, they don't need to be aware of it, but they're getting the value out of it.
So you guys are working with T-Mobile, AT&T in the US, and then there's Telefonica in the next Latin.
Yeah.
And the one thing that people say all the time when Europe...
Yeah. No, I think that obviously some of the stuff is not, things that aren't public yet, but like there's a lot of exciting conversations that are happening right now, engaging with carriers outside the U.S. Obviously, there's interest. They're kind of seeing the success of that, and it's how do we start to deploy there. One of the other things that, for the folks that are following the city over at Inversion Capital, I mean, he's put out a lot of podcasts and kind of like his model of how do you really think about that adoption, again, the benefits of crypto. To him, it's actually kind of meshing together DePIN and what we're doing with Helium with some of the benefits of DeFi as well. So his model is how are you going to go to some of these places where there are economically inefficient network operators in different parts of the world and bringing that Helium model to these other places where, right now, if Nova Labs is running Helium Mobile in the US, we could see that exact same model in countries around the world. So from Foundation's perspective, anytime somebody says, I want to be able to launch a carrier in some of their geography and we've got a good strategic plan in place, we're more than eager to start to support those folks who can kind of bring more traction and more participation to Helium in different parts of the world.
Yeah, I think it's really hard at the beginning, right? How you convince people that it actually works, it's trustable, it's like secure, safe, whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess what you guys are doing, it's been proving that it works.
Yeah.
And then very, very soon, you're not going to have to reach anymore for companies and carriers. They're going to come to you.
I think what's been really great is to see these types of, we had them in IoT. I think just the reality is on the mobile side, not only are the case studies real, but the volume of data that's going through is very, very significant. And that means that, always that, it doesn't matter if it's venture, if it's crypto, like the first sales are always the hardest. But once you have those case studies where you're showing that resiliency, that uptime, the durability of it, I mean, some of this stuff with crypto just takes time.
Yeah.
So showing that you have that resiliency, that you can continue to scale. And again, that's what we've been doing now for 6 years. And, now we've got some of the largest carriers in the world relying on Helium to expand their coverage footprint. So telling those stories and having the metrics, the fundamentals to support it, I think next few years are going to be really exciting for us.
It's a lot of hustle.
Takes time, but we've got a great team. We've got an incredible community of folks that have been participating and kind of along for the journey for a long time. So for the folks that have been around the longest, the incentives are there, and it's just a matter of delivering on that promise, which I think we're really doing now.
And what is next on the pipeline that you can announce, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as far as things that are coming next, so one is that Foundation's going to actually be announcing soon, kind of a tens of $1 million in commitment to supporting coverage. I think with IoT, we saw a lot of those protocol rewards drove a lot of that coverage out. Where for mobile, now the demand side is really taking off. We want to make sure we accelerate that coverage in the supply side to meet that existing demand that's coming due. So supporting the community with more coverage incentives from Foundation's a big one. Certainly continue to engage with a lot of the telcos right now. There's a lot of other kind of smaller, exciting things in terms of, last year we had a really fantastic project around disaster response with a great veterans group in the US. How can we do more of those types of things? So when you think about emergency services where when power goes down, you need that kind of connectivity layer. There's another place where DePIN shines. So, you need power. You need to be able to have those deployments. You need to be able to come stand that connectivity. You need the backhaul in place. Looking at kind of more of those types of creative solutions on where we can partner the right folks of emergency response systems. So, thinking about those types of things where there's still kind of like civic and social good out of it. But I think in general, right now, it's just how can we satisfy a lot of that kind of growing demand that we're seeing right now. So
Yeah.
coverage is a good thing to be a focus. The other thing, in addition to kind of the large carrier offload, is one of the things that we're really ramping up on is what we're calling, quality of service. So carriers traditionally, when they roam into some of these other Wi-Fi networks, it's a black box. They have no, other than just knowing that a Wi-Fi access point is on, they don't know, what the data flow through, bit rates are, what is that uptime, and the fact that we have eyes in, because of the firmware that's installed on these devices, we have eyes into the actual quality of that data. So now, as carriers are looking to leverage Helium, they can actually look and see kind of which spots are performing well, and that's where we're again can start to drive a lot more kind of that ideal supply growth that we want to have. So, it allows us to kind of get creative on how we're thinking about evolving incentives as well, too, because the carriers are going to demand that type of SLA and uptime that they've had from other partners. We can deliver that with kind of quality service metrics.
And leveraging like crypto also to incentivize people to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, right?
Exactly.
What else would you like to tell the people that are listening now?
I would say if you're in the U.S., sign up for Helium Mobile, get involved. If you're a deployer, we're looking for folks, certainly U.S., Mexico, if you want to get involved internationally. Anything you want to do to get involved in Helium, say reach out hello@helium.foundation. Follow us on X at Helium. But otherwise, I think it's going to continue to be a really exciting journey. And, I think it's a lot of opportunities to get involved right now. Also, very, very large grant program for builders. We're still doing some exciting things in IoT. So people that want to build turnkey IoT solutions, there's certainly grant money around that. But mobile is really, I think, where a lot of the exciting action is right now.
Amazing. Make sure to check deepinhub.io/project/helium. Thanks so much, Scott, man.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Cheers.